Heatco furnaces are shipped pre-calibrated and are 100% test-fired before leaving the factory. The following test procedure is for training and field verification purposes. This is a standard MB control board. The control involves two 24-volt AC transformers, a Maxitrol SC30 SM2AN signal conditioner, a fan speed control, and two ignition controllers. The heating unit gas train is divided into a modulating section and a secondary section. The modulating section uses a Maxitrol M-Series modulating valve and a combination gas valve. The secondary gas section uses a two-stage combination gas valve. These are the tools you will need to complete the test fire: a number 2 Phillips head screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, a 3/32 Allen wrench, toggle switch with wire leads, 0 to 10 volt DC generator, 2 manometers, precision flat tip screwdriver, and a voltmeter. To test fire the heating unit, you will need to do the following: install pressure taps in section A and B manifold and connect the manometers. Remove the blue cap from the M-Series modulating valve and turn the adjustment screw 2 turns counterclockwise. Connect the voltmeter to the modulating valve terminals. Set the reading for volts DC scale. Do not use the auto volt scale. Install the heat enable switch to terminals T1 and T2 on the terminal strip labeled A. Verify that the jumpers J1, J2, and J3 are open. Connect the DC voltage generator to the SC30 SM2AN terminals T12 and T13. The positive lead connects to T12 and the negative lead connects to T13. The control signal input is polarity sensitive. In the field, you may control the heating unit with the air handler control. Be sure to follow the same testing procedures and modulating control signal values. Connect the 120 volt AC to the power supply terminals L1, L2, and ground. To begin the adjustment sequence, open the manual shutoff valve that is located upstream of the heater gas valves. Supply the source voltage to the heater control. The blue power LED on the SC30 SM2AN will turn on. Set the DC power supply for 10 volts DC analog input to the SC30 SM2AN. Close the heat enable switch to initiate the startup sequence. The induced draft fan will start and the green AFS LED on the SC30 SM2AN will turn on. The induced draft fan will run at high speed for the 15-second pre-purge period. The yellow SU LED will turn on. The Section A gas valve and spark igniter are energized and the Section A burners cross-light. The heater continues to run with high-speed fan and the Section A burners at mid-fire for a 30-second warm-up period. During this warm-up period, verify the voltage to the modulating valve is 8.3 to 8.7 volts DC. If out of range, adjust pot 32 labeled Start VDC to 8.5 volts DC. After the warm-up period has expired, the yellow SU LED will turn off. The red LEDs R2 and R3 and the green mod LED turn on. The green AFS LED will remain on. The modulating valve will then move to the operating position specified by the modulation signal. Section A will increase to high fire. The modulating valve voltage should be 17.8 volts DC or higher. The Section A manifold pressure should be 3.4 to 3.5 inches water column. If out of range, adjust the high regulator on the Section A combination valve to provide proper gas pressure. After a 15-second delay, the Section B ignition sequence begins and the burners cross-light, and it will operate at high fire. The Section B manifold pressure should be 3.4 to 3.5 inches water column. If out of range, adjust the high regulator on the Section B combination valve to provide proper gas pressure. Reduce the analog input to 7 volts DC. Relay R3 will open, turning off the red R3 LED, and the high stage on the Section B combination valve turns off. The Section B manifold pressure should be 0.9 to 1.1 inches water column, and it will operate at low fire. If out of range, adjust the low regulator on the Section B combination gas valve. Reduce the analog input voltage to 0 volts DC. Relay R2 opens, turning off the red R2 LED, and the Section B burners will turn off. Relay 1 closes, turning on the red R1 LED, and the induced draft fan drops to low speed. The green mod LED will remain on. The Section A manifold pressure should be 0.3 inches water column. If adjustment is needed, adjust the bypass on the M-series modulating valve to provide the correct manifold pressure. Remove the call for heat by opening the heat enable switch. The combination gas valve will close, shutting off the gas supply to the burners. The flames will extinguish and the induced draft fan will start its 30-second post-purge period. To begin the operation check sequence, set the DC power supply for 0 volts DC to the SC30 SM2 AN. Close the heat enable switch to initiate the startup sequence. The induced draft fan will start and the green AFS LED on the SC30 SM2 AN will turn on. The induced draft fan will run at high speed for the 15-second pre-purge period. The yellow SU LED will turn on. The Section A gas valve and spark igniter are energized, and the Section A burners cross-light. The heater continues to run with high-speed fan, and the Section A burners at 1.4 inches to 1.8 inches water column manifold pressure for the 30-second warm-up period. If necessary, adjust the voltage to the modulating valve using pot 32 start VDC to achieve the correct manifold pressure of 1.4 inches to 1.8 inches water column. Do not adjust the modulating or combination gas valve. After the 30-second warm-up period, relay R1 will close. The red R1 LED and the green mod LED will be on. The Section A input will decrease to minimum input, and the induced draft fan will run at low speed. The green AFS LED may be on or off, depending on the fan pressure. The manifold pressure should be 0.25 inches to 0.30 inches water column. Increase the analog input voltage to 2.7 volts DC. Relay R1 will open. The red R1 LED will turn off, and the induced draft fan will go to high speed. The green AFS and green mod LEDs are on. If the red R1 LED does not turn off, use a flat tip precision screwdriver to adjust pot number 7 labeled R1 on the SC30 SM2 AN. Turn very slowly counterclockwise until the red R1 LED turns off. This sets the transition point for the induced draft fan speed. Increase the analog input voltage to 5 volts DC. Section A manifold pressure will increase to 3.3 to 3.5 inches water column. Increase the analog input voltage to 5.3 volts DC. Relay R2 will close, and the red R2 LED will come on. After the 15-second delay, the Section B ignition sequence begins and the burners cross-light at low fire. The manifold pressure should be 0.9 inches to 1.1 inches water column. After a 30-second delay, the voltage to the Section A modulating valve will drop to 6.3 to 6.7 volts DC. If the voltage is out of range, adjust pot number 5 labeled ST3 min until the mod valve voltage reads 6.5 volts DC. Increase the analog input voltage to 7.7 volts DC. Relay R3 will close, and the red R3 LED will come on. The Section B high stage valve will open, and Section B operates at high fire. The manifold pressure should be 3.3 inches to 3.5 inches water column. After a 30-second delay, the voltage to the Section A modulating valve will drop to 6.3 to 6.7 volts DC. If the voltage is out of range, adjust pot number 4 labeled ST4 min until the mod valve voltage reads 6.5 volts DC. Increase the analog input voltage to 10.0 volts DC. Both sections A and B are now operating at high fire. The manifold pressure should be 3.3 to 3.5 inches on both sections. Remove the coffer heat by opening the heat enable switch. The combination gas valve will close, shutting off the supply of gas to the burners. The flames will extinguish and the induced draft fan will start its 30-second post-purge period. Once the inducer fan is off, turn off the supply power to the heating unit. In the field, make sure that the air handling unit controller wire leads are reconnected and secured properly before powering the heating unit back on.